Good morning, friends. Thanks for joining us for another one of the 31 Days of Samhain. Um, and for those of you that have watched the video before this, the light in here has changed quite a bit since I recorded that just not even like 10 or 15 minutes ago. A lot of you know that I try to record these in the morning before the stores open, or sometimes I record them at home. However, after all of my tech issues last time, I figured that, doing them here at work is the best. I get faster uploads. But, oops, I missed a candle. Um, Very much like lighting from one candle to another. Sharing our light. Come on, baby. Oh, you're dripping wax on yourself. That's why you're not wanting a light. Here we go. I just missed one. Anyway, I like to spend time here in the morning before the store opens and just spend some time with our people here. And just like I'd mentioned in the previous recording for the 31 days, sometimes when we do that ancestor work, it is not the easiest for us to do, especially if we have things that are unresolved. That was a pretty difficult video for me to record. But just being totally honest with you, and as you guys know by now, this is a pretty raw thing that we're doing here. It's, as we like to say, it's a come as you are party. One of the things I wanted to talk about this morning, especially is related to the ancestors. In the previous day, we talked about how to work on some resolution with some of those ancestors or those friends in spirit that maybe we need to do some extra healing work, especially on our own hearts with. And I would, of course, encourage you to do that. And there's a way that we can kind of work that into our the next few days of Samhain as well. Especially if it was an ancestor, although a lot of us have like physical items that belong to folks that are in spirit that may not be ancestors. But like, especially if you have dishes or plates, or actually it could really just be anything that belong to folks in spirit, you might want to think about kind of starting to gather some of those things now. A really good thing to do is to kind of start focusing on what you might like to do for a dumb supper, if you would like to do that. The dumb supper is not dumb. The word dumb can often be really confusing for a lot of people. And in this case, dumb means like mute, like not speaking. So the traditional dumb supper is held in with natural light, in from some of the traditions that I created, like just with folks that I'm close to. We would always use like black dishes just to like symbolize that in between the worlds. Of course, those are not real easy to find, so you might want to do like a black tablecloth with like a white dish, and then you have that balance of that light and dark. And what it comes down to is it's a meal that is eaten entirely in silence. And then you have an empty chair there for those that are in spirit that nobody sits in, that we would usually put like a piece of black cloth over, or like a black scarf over the chair, symbolizing that that's theirs. It's kind of like marking or saving their place. But the meal is eaten entirely in silence. Now, some of the other things that go along with doing the dumb supper are, if you're like starting this, of course, cleansing and cleansing your space is important. But I would also encourage you, if you have like any old dishes of relatives in spirit, get those out, treat those as one of your sacred tools at this time. You might even want to take a few minutes just to, like, if you have a platter, just to hold it, think about who it came from, and visualize in your mind's eye seeing that ancestor, like using that plate, or being at a family gathering, and things that brought you joy that were associated with that item. Now, another thing that you can do is, a lot of people still have old family recipe books, not the ones that are digital and come off of your phone, but actually the ones that people will handwrite out. So you also might want to get out like a recipe book and like feel the energy and feel like something as profound as it's hard to say a recipe book is profound, but think about it. There are years and years of people's energy in those things. And there's years and years of communal family meals associated with that. And like if you're really wanting to do the ancestor work, this is it's an easy way to do it, and it's often overlooked. Like sometimes people will make somebody's dish that somebody made, but it's just because everybody liked it. But like if you think about it, if you have that book that has all that energy from that person in it, or even if it's a recipe card that they wrote down for you, you can pull that out and feel the energy in that, and feel your lineage is the words I'm getting. But so besides like pulling out any like platters or dishes that may have been passed down through the family, pull out the recipes. Make the recipes that that ancestor was known for, or loved, or anything like that, and consider working that into your dumb supper. Another thing you can do traditionally, part of what I've done for a few years now, is like to set up almost like an altar near the table where everyone is eating, and put pictures of your loved ones on that altar space. And then you could also bring in items that were theirs. Like a lot of men may have pocket watches from folks that have passed on, and set that watch out near their picture. Or sometimes wedding rings are passed down through generations. Pull those out and set those all on the altar, because it's a way of inviting that energy into your space. And especially if it's somewhere near where everyone will be eating, it's like you're inviting that energy in. And typically we would put the chair closest to that altar space. And the big question is, well, what if you have more than one ancestor? They can share a chair. It's okay. Now, traditionally, like I said, the meal is eaten in silence. What you also want to do is you want to serve the ancestors first. So they get all the first food, any of the liquids anyone's drinking, wine, if they were a coffee person, if they were a rum person, a whiskey person, they get served first before everyone else does. It's just like showing them respect and showing them honor. And then, like I said, the whole meal is eaten in silence, and typically it's eaten in natural light. So you want to turn off your overhead lights and put some candles on the table, or if you have like a hurricane style lamp, an oil lamp, you can put those out. But it's typically eaten in silence with natural light, ancestors served first. Now, from where I come from and from what I've done in the past, we do talk during dessert. So when the dessert comes out, because you have to have dessert, right? But when dessert comes out, or after you've eaten the meal, that's usually the time when people will share things that have energetically come to them from spirit, because during that silence is also like a liminal space between the worlds as well. So you may notice that stories may come to you where you remember things that happened, and that's a time over dessert is where you share what's come in. And then at the very end, when everything is done, you take that plate outside and you leave it as an offering to spirit. So you can either take your whole plate outside, or you can and leave it there, or you can take your plate off and like scrape it off. But you want to give it back to nature and give it back to the animals, because you don't want to just throw that away. It's been sacred. You've done a ceremony. So even whether you've called circle or not, which I would encourage you to do. And you could always cast circle early if you're having other people over, if you're not casting in front of them, so that's okay too. And again, we touched on doing the cleansings and the banishings and things like that. The nice thing is that after your dinner, you can often like just leave those pictures up for a while, and use that as part of your ancestor altar for the rest of Samhain. But the dumb supper is something that's always been very near and dear to my heart. There have been a few years where I haven't been able to do it, but I feel like they still know that we're listening, and they still know that we care. So I would encourage you to consider incorporating a dumb supper into your workings this year. And if you can't do it on Samhain, time is a construct of man. So feel free to do it when it feels right to you. If you feel like you can't do this around other people, feel free to do it on your own in private. That's entirely okay too. because honestly, you're not going to be on your own anyway. Your ancestors will be with you. And if you need to do it after Samhain, you can do that as well. Some folks will wait and do it on what's called astrological Samhain, when the sun moves into 15 degrees Scorpio. And I have not looked that date up yet. I'm wanting to say I think it's either the 5th or the 6th. It's right around there. So we have the 31st, which is kind of like traditional Samhain, and then we have astrological Samhain, which usually happens like 4 to 5 days later. So, and that's an easy thing to Google and look up. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. I looked it up once and then I promptly forgot it. I think it's the 5th. But anyway, I feel like I've thrown a lot at you with the dumb supper today, but I would hope that you would consider doing that, or at the very least, say a little bit of a prayer to those ancestors and set an offering outside. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy it, and I look forward to hearing back from you guys. Anybody that's enjoyed this series, feel free to drop me a Facebook message or an email. I would love to know what you think and what you liked. I would also like to know what you didn't like. That's okay too. But thanks so much for spending this time together. I was adding up the time the other day, and we've spent a lot of time together. So anyway, thanks again for joining us for the next 31 days of Samhain, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.